Coming up on the podcast.
So I was obviously pretty thrilled when I actually landed the gameplay intern position at Blizzard Entertainment on the World of Warcraft team. And they both just sat there, right? And lead game designer, lead gameplay engineer, and then this like nobody intern was like, I think that's a bad idea because XYZ. And they just looked at me and they were like, you know what? You're completely right. That's a great idea. I think you should just do exactly what you think you should do.
You mentioned in our putting together the episode chat that you had some pretty decent bug fix stories from your time.
Oh man. It means that we don't have to create any features with the goal of monetizing them.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to create any features where it's like, oh yeah, and then we could sell like 20,000 gems for $2. Like, we don't have to think about that. We can just make fun things.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. So, with our tech test looming large on the horizon, I figured that we, on this very special for us present and recording episode of the podcast, given that it is in the spooky hours of the night, I wanted to get somebody who is familiar with how Ember Sword ticks, how the gameplay part of Ember Sword ticks, specifically. Since, it is a tech test, it is ostensibly gameplay related. This is, I believe, one of the best ways to get you guys up to speed on who is actually building the game for you. So, with me today, I have Anders, our lead gameplay programmer. I said gameplay very correctly here. Say hi, Anders.
Hello, everybody.
Right, so as this is a Meet the Team podcast, and you have a frankly fascinating life story, let's start with your background. Who are you? Where did you come from? All that good jazz.
Oh, where did I come from, Cut and Eye Joe? Yeah,
that's copyrighted. We're gonna get sued into oblivion.
Okay, sure. All right, sorry. Man, how far back do you want to start? I am the youngest of four. Pretty incredible. Two parents with 20 years between me and the oldest. Which also means that my sister's husband has effectively been in my family longer than I have.
Oh, God.
Yeah. After doing the usual kind of grow up stuff in Denmark, went through grade school. I spent a year in Chile, living with a Chilean family, without, my own family or anything along those lines when I was 15. And because of that, I speak Spanish fluently. Got back. I did high school, as everybody does. Spent 2 years in the military. Was actually supposed to go off on a tour in Afghanistan, but I got second thoughts. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, what I want to do. I really like math. I really like video games. You know what? I'm going to become a teacher because teacher have a shit ton of vacation. And then I could just play video games in my vacation time. Excellent. Brilliant, right? And then I'll teach Spanish and I'll teach math, and then I'll just play video games whenever I don't have to do any of that stuff. Teaching super difficult. Not something that I'm very good at. And then people were like, "Hey, you like video games? Video games is just math, basically." I was like, "Oh my God, is it?" And then I started studying software engineering, and totally fell in love. This was the entire world is always gray. Like it's always it's always really hard to figure out what the right thing is and what's correct and all that kind of stuff. So having this software engineering that's just like, oh yeah, this 2 + 2 = 4 all the time, have that be like the main way to conduct my to conduct my work in the world. That was super great for me. So I studied in Denmark in a university in Denmark, and my girlfriend at the time got the idea that we should go study abroad for our masters. And I was like, cool, let's go have a look at what you can get. And I found one of the best computer programming, video game programming master's degrees in the world, actually, is in the U.S., at USC in California, Los Angeles. So I applied, somehow made it in, and did the first year there, which was pretty insane.
How so?
Well, it was. I had a really very like, especially the very first course. I actually think I should talk about that a little bit. The very first course was basically this absolutely brilliant dude called Artem Kovalos. He's a principal programmer for Naughty Dog,
Nice.
and then also teaches at USC. When he was an undergrad, he wrote his own game engine from scratch. And he calls this like it's relatively basic. It doesn't really have a lot of content, but it has like some relatively good functionality in it. And then there's like a bunch of functionality that's also missing, obviously. So the course basically is that he gives you the source code to this game engine, and then every week you get a new task. Like, oh, there's physics doesn't exist in this engine, right? So I need you to create gravity. And then I need you to make bounding boxes for things that are static and don't move. And I need you to create spheres for everything that does move. And then things should obey the laws of gravity and not be able to pass through each other. You have a week. Go.
You have a week, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And that was the entire semester, right? That was. It's just like, oh yeah, we want to like. We need you to like make like shadows. So go work on the vertex shader until you have shadows. You have a week. Like that was the kind of stuff that happened there. It was a very, very good course. It was really difficult.
That was just one of the courses too.
That was one of the courses. I had 3.
Did you sleep?
No, I kind of didn't.
Christ.
No, it was. I learned so much from that master's degree. It was very, very, and especially that course. I owe that course very, very, very much. It was a great experience. Afterwards, I had kind of a little bit of military flashbacks where I remember we at one point were out and doing some kind of rehearsal or some kind of exercise, in the military, and it was like February. It was like probably 2 degrees, and we had just done a water crossing, so everybody just was completely wet to the bone, and our orders were to sit down and secure the point, right? And we just lay down super cold at shit o'clock in the night, 2 degrees, and I remember thinking to myself, like, this is going to be really funny afterwards, like in a couple of months or weeks, this is going to be really funny to talk about. That's exactly how the Prime Engine course was too. It was like, afterwards, it's really funny to talk about, and there's so many things I learned from it, but boy, was it hard. Yeah, it was really difficult. Anyway, the way universities kind of work in the U.S., at least it's different from Denmark, is you do your schoolwork all the way through the semester. All the way through the year, and then in spring you start applying for internships. And then you actually work your internships full-time over the summer, as opposed to Denmark, where you kind of do part-time thing over a longer period of time. And sent off a bunch of different applications to a bunch of different places. And to this story also is obviously that I've played World of Warcraft since release. Played it a ton. Easily the game that I've sunk the most hours into. So I was obviously pretty thrilled when I actually landed the gameplay intern position at Blizzard Entertainment on the World of Warcraft team.
Whenabouts was that?
That was 2015, the summer of 2015. So that was like they were getting ready to release the Hellfire Citadel patch. Hellfire Citadel raid in Worlds of Draenor, and I got in and was basically told all about Legion and all the different things that needed to happen there, and did a bunch of basically worked on Legion for the entirety of my internship, which was awesome. Like, it was so good. I had sky high expectations, and they were absolutely blown out of the water. It was amazing. It was really, really great. And thankfully they felt the same way, because I had my 3-month internship, and then like 2 months after my internship ended, they sent me an offer for returning full time after my master's was done.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was super great. And what's even more funny actually is I talked about how I did like the super crazy 3 courses during the first semester. I actually ended up having done way too much of my master's degree. So
Is that even
in
a
this,
thing?
yeah, it's because you have to like you have to complete a certain amount of points in order to like to fulfill the requirements of the master's degree.
Right.
And I was not over the limit, but I was like approaching the limit. So I found out that during the spring of 2016, I was going to have 1 course every second Thursday from like 4 to 8 in the evening. So I wrote back to the World of Warcraft team, and I was like, hey, you know, if you want to do like a second internship, but just like for the spring, I mean, I'm not doing anything else. So they were like, cool, awesome. So I came back, and then I did a bunch of more work on Legion, finished my master's degree, and went back to Denmark for like 2 weeks, said hello to everybody, and then traveled back, started full time. And then I worked as a gameplay engineer from the summer of 2016 all the way up until the summer of 2019. For everybody who's played the game and kind of want to know what kind of stuff I did, I want to say first of all that obviously I try to influence some decisions that were made by design, but obviously it's not my call all the time. So if I made something that you really like, it's not me that you should praise that much. If I made something that you really disliked, then I'm sorry, but again, it's not really that like it's not that I don't want to take responsibility for my actions, but yeah. I gave feedback, but ultimately it was not my call, right? So I did a bunch of work on initially there was another guy that implemented artifacts, but he left shortly after I joined. And then I took over artifacts, so I did all the kind of engineering work, not all of the engineering work, but a bunch of engineering work related to artifacts, the main part of it at least. And then when Battle for Azeroth rolled around, I handled all of the Heart of Azeroth, all of the Azerite items, and all that stuff. Did a bunch of other things as well. I did a ton of work on garrisons, on the Legion order halls, and on the war campaign missions that you had there. So much work in the spell system, because the spell system is what drives WoW, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a big thing. But yeah, that's kind of what I did there. This is getting a little bit long-winded, but all right, then I left Blizzard.
Well, before we drift too far away from the topic, I guess is the elephant
sure.
kind of in the room. What was your experience outside of just the gameplay stuff and working on the game? Just what was your experience in Blizzard like, considering what we now know?
Mine was great. Mine was awesome. It was really like, obviously you're referring to the lawsuit and mm-hmm. all the things there. I mean, I recall a couple of instances, like only clearly like one instance of a coworker coming up to me, and we're just having like a casual conversation about. She would say something along the lines of like, "Oh yeah, I'm super happy to be on Team 2 now." And I was like, "Oh really? What's up?" And she would say something along the lines of like, "Oh, there's just like this super creep at my old team." Mm-hmm. I was like, "Oh, that sucks. I mean, I hope that gets dealt with, or you report it or something." Like, I don't know. I wasn't kind of in a position where I really had any authority to do anything there, mm-hmm. so I just kind of lended my ear, right?
Yeah.
And it also took me a while, because I felt as soon as kind of the news broke and all that kind of stuff, I had a tremendous amount of guilt, right? Mm-hmm. Because I had a tremendous amount of like just feeling that, man, like, could I have done something? Was there something that I didn't like, that I just turned the blind eye to, or like what in the world went on? Right? How could I have been so blind to this? Right? And I kind of reached out to a bunch. Obviously, we talked a lot after that the news broke. And everybody that I've talked to was kind of like, no, man. Like the thing is that the people that do stuff like this, they know who they can share stuff with and who they can't share stuff with. So because of that, they're like extra nice to the people that they know won't accept bad shit, right?
Yeah.
So that if I was ever asked, because if you asked me like 3 years ago, hey, what do you think of Alex? Like Alex Afrasiabi, right?
Mhm.
I'd be like, he's a super cool guy, and I've never ever like he's never had any kind of like nothing ever bad ever happened to me in terms of him dealing with me, right?
Yeah.
I had no bad impression of him at all. He'd always been super like I wasn't really that high in the hierarchy, obviously, as a gameplay programmer, but I still felt like he listened to me. Like I had no bad words to say in that regard, right?
Yeah.
But now it's just like I feel kind of manipulated, right?
Mm.
I feel like I'm just really sad that so many things happened to people that I didn't see, that I just didn't see, or was hidden from me, or I don't even know at this point, right? Yeah, it was. I had a wonderful time there. I felt like I connected really well with a lot of the people that worked there. I miss a ton of my coworkers that I had there. They were super, super awesome people. And then it was just kind of gut wrenching to know that there were so many of them that went through these bad things, and that apparently I just didn't have any open eyes for it. And yeah.
I mean, it sounds like from we of course know the big picture story from all the reporting from various outlets, but we haven't really gotten the sort of boots on the ground perspective on what happened there. And you were in a position just like that, where you were doing your job and you weren't really cognizant of those things because they were happening in such a strange fashion that you were isolated from those. So it feels. I mean, it's only normal that you wouldn't know about that. So that's kind of fascinating to me.
But I've also the more I've reflected upon it, the more I've realized how privileged I actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Of course.
I was because I felt treated well. I felt like I was listened to. I mean, I honestly I have a super great kind of relatively short story here, which is. I was asked when I did my very first internship. I was called into a meeting to get some extra tasks because I'd run out of tasks. I was called into an extra meeting where they wanted me to make a mechanism so that basically when legendaries dropped in Legion, they wanted it to report to guild chat.
Yeah.
And I was called into a meeting to just talk about the prospect of this.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, and it's a lead game designer, and it's the lead gameplay engineer. And then I'm in the meeting. They're kind of explaining to me, hey, we want to just, when an item drops, if it's legendary, we want to just pump the guild chat and say, hey, this guy got this thing. And I sat there and I was like, I think that's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because there are plenty of things that drop that are of legendary quality, like crafting reagents and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which you definitely don't need. Like, you don't want to pump that out to guild chat. Another great example is there's a lot of people running old raids, and like the Kael'thas encounter drops legendary weapons, and that's something that a lot of people kill because they want his mount. So if every single time someone ran that, and then it would just go, hey, got these 5 legendaries, that would really suck. And then on the other hand, there's a bunch of stuff that's not legendary that you definitely want to know about. Like, for example, the mount from that encounter, which is not legendary. And they both just sat there, right? And lead game designer, lead gameplay engineer, and then this like nobody intern was like, I think that's a bad idea because XYZ. And they just looked at me and they were like, you know what? You're completely right. That's a great idea. I think you should just do exactly what you think you should do. Your solution sounds great. Let's just go with that, right? So that's what I experienced, right? And I've come to realize that being in that position and being treated like that apparently was a place of privilege, mm-hmm. where I thought it was commonplace, right? I thought that was how people were treated, but. Yeah, apparently I just had it really good there. So
I mean, thank God we're at least at this for now and hopefully forever succeeding in making Brightstar what you thought Blizzard was.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm all the experiences that I had there that were so so positive, I'm bringing that with me, right? And
I can tell,
and I had, like right around when I joined Brightstar, that was when a lot of this news broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of talks with Mark, obviously, about this, where I was like, I want you to know that I want to talk about this, and I want to make sure that nobody feels like this, and I want to make sure that nobody looks at me, because the other thing was also that I had a bunch of colleagues, or former colleagues at Blizzard, who'd moved on to other studios, and suddenly their colleagues at the other studios were like, "Oh wait, you're a Blizzard person.
Yeah.
Are you a person that like inappropriately touches women, or are you a person that does XYZ?" Right? They started to get, like, people were feeling the effects in the other jobs simply because they'd worked at Blizzard at some point, right? So I talked to Mark about this, and I was like, I want you to ensure you that I don't want that here, obviously, and I want to fight as much as I can to make sure it doesn't happen. And I want to be 100% transparent that anybody that has any questions about this, which is also why I'm happy to talk about it now, is welcome to come and talk to me about it and get my perspective. And I want to sit down and tell you, like, that I am obviously against this, and I want to make sure that we create a culture where stuff like that is so unacceptable that you just get thrown out immediately.
Absolutely, amen to that. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing this.
Yeah, and Mark was very, very like, we basically sat down and was like, "Yep, I think that's completely correct. I completely agree with you." Like, it sounds like this was like my idea, my doing anything, but I actually think that our entire conversation was just us saying, "Yes, I think this," and then the other person would go, "Yes, and in addition this," and then the first person would be like, "Yes, and in addition this, yes." So it was just a long line of us agreeing with each other that that this is something we should fight. So
sounds like a good fit.
It was great.
to bring it to something more positive, you mentioned in our putting together the episode chat that you had some pretty decent bug fix stories from your time.
Oh man, big games. There's a lot of really fun things that happen there. I think I have two kind of really fun bug fixes that I really enjoyed, that I thought were really cool. The first one it happened during Legion Alpha. And this is totally publicly facing because of what happened, but it's great. There's this mechanic in World of Warcraft where if you're a hunter, you can tame pets. Okay. So you can go and you can tame like a spider or a bear or something. And then later it evolved to that you could have these rare tames where you had to like do something special in order to make sure that you could tame this thing. And for Legion, there was a designer that made a exploding sheep. So the idea, so you sit down, you tame the thing, and when you tame it, then you can't move. You have to tame it for a certain amount of seconds, and then you can't move. And the thing with the exploding sheep was, if it ever got to you, it exploded and killed you. And then once then it would become a normal pet, and that would not be like its attack once you got it or anything. But the idea was that you needed some kind of like slowing mechanism to make sure that it didn't get to you for the duration of the tame, and then congratulations, you had the thing.
Okay.
However, there was a bug in the code for when you summoned a pet, which was the first time you summon a pet, for like the first frame, it would still think that it was a creature.
Oh,
just for the first frame. Oh, you know exactly where this is going. So this meant that the very first time you summoned this exploding sheep, it would explode. And this made its way onto the Legion Alpha, right? And this explosion was 20-yard radius.
Holy shit!
It was insta kill, and it had no ignore flags or anything. So what people started doing on the alpha was went out, tamed the sheep, went into like the major city, into like the auction house, summoned the sheep, and obliterated everyone. Also the NPCs, right? Everything. Also the invisible NPCs. Right? And everything broke, and it was it was complete mayhem for like the amount of time that it was up. I think it was like a week or something. They fixed it pretty quickly because they couldn't get any test data, because the only thing people did was like, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna tame the sheep, I'm gonna go into a raid, the like new boss fight. All right, summon the sheep. Cool, boss dead. Like it was absolute madness. Yeah, that was.
God.
That was pretty. That was pretty hilarious.
That's fantastic.
It was great. Yeah. The other one that I find really funny is World of Warcraft is, as I said previously, is basically built on spells. If you've kind of looked into Wowhead and some of those sites, you'll notice that I think it's either approaching 300,000 spells or it's over 300,000 spells at this point.
Jesus.
Like everything is a spell, right? When you summon your mount, every mount that you know is a spell. Every pet you know is a spell. All of your professions are spells. Like all those different things are spells, right? When you create a new spell, it has a spell type, a spell school, if you will, right? There's the Holy School of Magic, there's Unholy, there's Nature, Fire, all those kinds of things, right? Okay. So when you create a new spell, the default school is physical. Mm-hmm. So most spells in the game are physical because that's the default, right? And there's the concept of chaos damage as well. So chaos is all schools, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the precursors to this. We had an issue where we were getting crashes because we were trying to save a certain amount of spells that were on cooldown. So a player can, when you get interrupted, your stuff goes on cooldown, or just when you use an ability, it can go on cooldown, right? Mm-hmm. And then when we save the player, we're like, hey, what spells are on cooldown? And, like maybe you use a couple of cooldowns, maybe you have like some kind of like profession where you could do something once every 24 hours, right? So usually the numbers are not that big, right? Mm-hmm. But we were getting crashes because people were trying to save having over 1,000 spells on cooldown. And we were like, what in the world is going on? Like, how is this? And we put in some logging and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And we figured out this only happened in arenas. And we went in and I kind of did a couple some logging in there. And we figured out that demon hunters have a spell which is called Fel Barrage, which is supposed to be chaos damage. Mm. And because of that, they just put all the schools on it, right? But Fel Barrage is channeled, so it can be interrupted.
Oh, no.
So Fel Barrage being chaos damage, or having the physical school, that meant that when you interrupted Fel Barrage, it would put all the different schools on cooldown, including physical. So all of your professions, all of your mounts, all of that, right, instantly went on cooldown. And so if you had a demon hunter, did Fel Barrage in an arena, he gets interrupted and then he dies immediately afterwards. So the arena ends. Now it's like the arena ends, somebody got some amount of rating, let's save the player. So it only happened in these very specific instances where demon hunters were casting Fel Barrage, and then everything that they knew at all was trying to be saved as being on cooldown, and the entire system was just like, no, I can't do that, and it just broke it entirely. And the funny thing about that is like the fix was so simple, right? It was like, yeah, cool, Fel Barrage is chaos damage, but it's not physical. And they just removed physical from Fel Barrage. Everything was fine. Never crashed again, right? It was glorious. Actually, I really have one final one, because this was very near and dear to me, and I spent so long, and it was so stupid. I worked on when we did Battle for Azeroth, we converted all honor from being character based to being account based. Mm-hmm. So part of this was all the honor that you already earned on characters had to be converted into account based, and the way we wanted to do that, instead of doing a database migration, was when you logged in with a character, we would take all of your all of your character-based honor and then turn it into account-based honor. And obviously this was super prone to like, failing and like something went wrong somewhere because we need to communicate between a bunch of different servers and stuff like that and databases. So because of that, I built a pretty solid state machine to make sure that everything went well. And if anything went wrong, that it would roll back correctly and all that kind of things. Right.
Yeah.
And, we launched the pre-patch and more or less everything went well. Right.
Okay.
We got a bunch of warnings and a bunch of like I couldn't do this, which was exactly what we expected, and it rolled back characters, and the next time they logged in, everything was fine, right?
Yeah.
Except there were very, very few instances where it would repeatedly, for just a couple of characters, it would repeatedly fail. Every single time they logged in. We're talking like it was very, very small amount, right? It was in the like hundreds of players. When we're talking about a game that has millions of characters, then that's like peanuts, right? But there were still like hundreds of characters where it just continuously failed, and I was so frustrated. I was like, oh man, how am I? What is going on? What is wrong here? And I put so much logging in, and I tried to get telemetry to give me the answer what was going on here, right? And the way it was implemented was that you basically had two different currencies here. You had honor, and then you had honor level. So you earned honor, and then when you had enough honor, then it would turn into an honor level, right? And because of that, I had like macros for this is the currency for this is the currency for this, and then I put a bunch of stuff in there and made sure that they were reused correctly, right?
Yeah.
Except there was one instance. So I spent 3 weeks, right, putting in logging, reading through logs, and like putting in more logging, and then like going to like the place, the person, right, and exporting their character and logging into their character on my local machine, and like so many different things to try and figure out what is the thing that's going wrong here, and I could not pinpoint it. I could not figure it out. Until finally, 3 weeks later, there is one server engineer that writes me, and he goes, "Hey, by the way, you have this function in this part of the like the rollback where it's called like rollback honor level, but the macro you're using in there is honor." And then in this other function, which is rollback honor, the macro you're using is honor level. So we're literally talking 6 characters, right? Like 6 keyboard characters that had to be moved from one line to another line to handle one single of like the 12 different failure cases that there were. And that, like, because it had been like that had put them in a state where, like, all their data was still correct, but they were trying to report it in the wrong way, so they would repeatedly fail every single time they tried. So those few, like, hundreds characters that had failed at that particular state were just stuck in this loop. So I went in, I moved 6 characters from one line to another line.
So stupid.
Poof, problem completely solved.
You were right. That was really stupid. I can't believe you sent people to limbo with a typo.
It was so terrible, man. There were so many. There's a bunch of great bugs that I could talk forever about this.
I think we could have a special episode of just bug reporting.
Oh, absolutely, dude. One of the guys that worked on the gameplay team used to work on The Sims. Dude, he has some gold. Like absolute gold, man.
Oh, you need to get some of that gold so you can retell it with his permission. I would be very much down for like a bug reporting podcast.
Yep, I would too, man. It's a ton of fun.
So bringing it back to sort of the present, how did you end up joining Ember Sword after all that madness?
The reason why I left Blizzard was not because of the company itself. It was actually because I need to go back to Denmark. The U.S. immigration system is very unkind, and I have a Danish wife, and there was just a bunch of things there that meant that we needed to go back to Denmark. Like our adventure in the U.S., we'd been there for 5 years at that point in time, and she was still not allowed to do anything at all. So she could just sit at home, like thousands of kilometers from family. So because of that, we went home. And I worked a bit in the cybersecurity industry for a while, because I was trying to find work in the gaming industry, but I couldn't find anywhere where I could actually earn a living, to be quite honest. And I worked in the cybersecurity industry for a while. But still, reached out to a couple of friends, like, hey, do you know anything that happens anywhere around Europe or Denmark or somewhere where I could work? And I had this casual conversation with one of my friends, Doug Fraser. Actually, he founded the Notorious studio recently, who apparently had been talking to Mark. And Mark was like, hey, so do you know anybody that has experience with large-scale MMOs like World of Warcraft, which is written in C++, like World of Warcraft, who knows about like gameplay stuff like I did, and who lives in Denmark?
Hey!
And Doug was like, yes. Yes, I do. And then he put me in contact with Mark, and I think negotiations took 4 days.
4 days.
And then I think that was the total amount. And then I was like, cool, I'm out of this stuff. I'm gonna go and make Internet Dragons again, because that's the best thing in the world. So yeah, that's basically how I joined Ember Sword. So, Doug, thank you very much for introducing me to Mark, man. That was I owe you one.
So you've been here for a decent bit. What has your experience been like in Bright Star Studios?
Oh, it's been very, very different for me. Obviously, Blizzard was a 10,000 employee company. The cybersecurity firm I work for was a 2,500 people, so it's a 2,500 people company. And then I joined, and I was employee number 22, I think. So that was very, very, very different for me. There's a lot of there's a lot of things about working in the startup environment that I didn't anticipate, but that I really like. I got a really great quote the other day, which was like in a big company, you have 5 layers of corporate to protect you from yourself. And then in a startup, you don't have those 5 layers, so you can do whatever you want, but it also means you're not protected. So you can just mess up a lot of stuff. No, it's been super great. I really think that the people here are super awesome. I'm loving the energy that I'm getting from them. And I have some. I have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I discuss about how we should do things, and everybody's really, really open-minded in terms of how development should go and how our processes should be and things like that. And it's really, it's really great. It's honestly super awesome. I'm really, really happy about being here. It was a great decision, basically.
I second that. Well, speaking of vision, I would like to touch upon what your vision for the actual game is. After all, you are, part of creating that foundation is,
Yeah, I've man, I've thought about how to answer his question. I feel like it's a really, really difficult question, because there's so many different things that I want to talk about. I've like one of the things I thought about was I have a bunch of friends who work at different other game studios, and they have this problem where they create a feature, right? And they design a feature, and it's like it's super fun, it's super awesome, and then like marketing and finance sneaks in. And goes like, all right, so how can we monetize your feature, right? And they have to like fight this ongoing battle with finance and marketing to not ruin their feature with microtransactions or some other, well, honestly, crap, right?
Yeah. As a marketing man, I fully endorse the goblin voice when talking about that.
Right? Yeah. And like that. I think that's one of the things that I really, really love about the business model for Ember Sword, because it like there's the awesome part of giving the player the ability to earn money playing the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way that basically what we do is we take that small tax out of all the different transactions that you do. It means that we don't have to create any features with the goal of monetizing them.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to create any features where it's like, oh yeah, and then we could sell like 20,000 gems for $2. Like, we don't have to think about that. We can just make fun things.
Absolutely.
Right? We can just make awesome stuff that's fun to play. We don't have to think about, oh, how do I monetize this? Because that is taken care of in the background, right? By the very thing that actually gives players value from playing the game. Like, it's brilliant. I love it.
Oh yeah.
There's another thing I also want to talk a little bit about, because that's obviously very much about, you know, the design of the game, which I'm the gameplay engineer, but I'm not obviously in charge of design there. I have input on design quite a lot, but but it's not ultimately not my decision, right? The other thing that I want to talk a little bit about is I've recently studied DevOps quite a bit. And all the different transformations that a lot of different places have gone through, and again here, the strategy that was chosen by the founders is excellent, right? Because the foundations of DevOps very much is that you kind of deliver things really, really fast, and you kind of iterate on the things in production super, super fast, right? And the fact that we're trying to invite in players as early as possible and getting their input on the things that we are building while we are building them, and setting up a pipeline so that we can iterate on the feedback that we get, not only from them, but also from like but also from like what kind of from metrics, right? What kind of interaction value does this give? Like, I think that's super, super great, because it allows us to it allows us to fine tune what is fun much faster, and get that feedback from the community and the things that we want. Like, yeah, it's just really, I'm really inspired by a lot of the success stories that DevOps have, especially like pointing out things like Etsy and Netflix and things like that. But having that apply to kind of a game development area, to use it not just to like, how do we increase sales by doing experiments in production, but how do we increase player engagement and fun? Like, and once again, we don't have to worry about monetizing the player engagement, because that's just already taken care of, right? Yeah. So like the kind of the marriage between being able to iterate super, super fast and kind of get things in front of people so they can give us feedback on it, and then we can fine tune it there. That's really what I want to implement, both on a technical standpoint, but also obviously on a community standpoint. We
have been very fortunate in that regard as well, since the people who have been testing the game so far, I'm envisioning internally, and of course the testers that we have amongst the community, who are, as Lauren, I believe, mentioned, under a veritable mountain of NDAs. We've been incredibly fortunate in that they know what fun is. They are like really experienced gamers, and that, you know, of course, constitutes the people in the team as well. And they know what a quality game of this type looks like. So it's very much a two-way street, and we're getting really, really good feedback.
Yeah, it's really nice. I've reached out a bit to community to ask them about it. You know, how are they doing? How are they collecting metrics about this? Right? How are they getting the opinions of the players? How are they collecting things and all that kind of stuff? And the community was just like, yeah, we do this. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay. I'm just gonna let you do your thing, because you obviously have it completely under control. Like, that's that's excellent. So no, I totally agree with you there. There's it's really great to get constructive and nice feedback from the testers, and it's really good what we've gotten so far.
Mm-hmm. Was there any other avenue that you want to talk about in terms of your vision?
No, I think mostly that's it. I want to kind of related to the Blizzard thing as well, but also related to DevOps here is I want to make sure that I kind of foster. Obviously, being the gameplay lead means that I'm the head of the gameplay team, and I want to make sure that I foster as much as I possibly can with not just my team but everybody they interact with, a sense of trust that people that people understand that they are allowed to do what they think is best and they don't have to ask permission, and that I trust them to make the right and the good decisions in what they do, and that we can all trust each other, right? And make sure that when I say, hey, I have some feedback on this, it's not because I am attacking you or I'm trying to take something away from you or anything along those lines. We're just having a conversation about it, right? And that when you do something, and I ask you, hey, I like the effects of what you did was this and this and this, and why did you think that was a good idea? That they can just go, yeah, I thought this. Thought I would do like this, and then I'll see what happens. And like, you know what? Sure. Like if you believe in this, if you think that this is the avenue that we should go down, then yes, I'll give you that trust, right? And obviously, a thing that makes that really easy is obviously the competency and the talent that is behind the team already. Because that gives you a lot of confidence already that you can literally just say to people, you know what, I trust exactly what you're intending to do, and that you have good reasons for doing what you're doing, and it works out. So
that is really well said. Like that was really poignant.
Oh, it's great.
Well, we've established real quick. This is usually the part of the Meet the Team episodes where we get to the part where we establish your street cred, but I think you got that firmly covered. Nevertheless, I do want to go a tiny bit into your gaming history before we wrap up.
Sure.
Give me your top 3 favorite video games.
Oh, World of Warcraft.
Easily, yeah.
So much time. Guitar Hero 3.
Oh, my man.
Guitar Hero 3. The probably one of my greatest single person achievement. One of the greatest single person achievement in gaming I ever had is 5-starring Through the Fire and Flames on Expert.
Oh, I cannot do that. I cannot. I actually learned to play drums through Guitar Hero.
Oh, nice. Yeah, through once drums got in the mix. Yeah, I still have a Guitar Hero. I'm probably going to bring it to work one day, and then we can jam out a little bit.
If we can find some drums, I am very down to do that. I am hard up to play with the boys.
Awesome. Yeah, we should definitely do that for a company day or something.
Yes, please.
Totally agree. I think probably either Diablo. Oh man, that's so hard. Diablo 2. Diablo 2 Civilization.
Oh, that's a tough choice.
Yeah.
Go with your gut.
I think, probably Diablo 2.
Fair enough.
Mostly, probably because of the amount of hours that I sunk into this. And obviously also once Resurrected came out that I played a bunch of that too. Mm-hmm. But I think that's my list. Probably World of Warcraft and then Guitar Hero and then Diablo 2.
That is very solid. Yeah. You said a bunch of hours. What is your longest gaming session?
Oh, so starting in Cataclysm, when Cataclysm released, I started a tradition of playing, logging in, and then playing until I was max level. So for Cataclysm, it kind of just happened spontaneously. I went there. I remember I went there at at 22. And I bought the game, and I went to this was back in the days where you went to GameStop to buy the thing, right? Went back, I installed it, and then I started playing, and I stopped. I started playing at midnight when the servers were up, and I stopped at some point after midday. This repeated in Mists of Pandaria. This repeated for Warlords of Draenor. Warlords of Draenor, however, had a bunch of server issues, and it repeated again for Legion, and for Battle for Azeroth. I tried to do it for Shadowlands, but I was just I'm too old at this point. I can't do all-nighters anymore, and especially not with 2 kids. I think the longest one was probably Mists of Pandaria, because Mists of Pandaria, I logged in, I played, and then I was in the lead. I was actually on the way to becoming Realm First level 90 Priest.
Yo, nice.
And then my internet cut.
No!
I know, and my internet was cut for like an hour.
Oh, come on!
I know, right? And it took me half an hour to figure out that it was probably a good idea to just stream internet from my phone and then keep playing, which is what I did, right? And I ended up losing by, I think, 19 minutes.
Oh, that is
something
nonsense.
Along those lines. Yeah, it was horrific. It was terrible. But I was so pissed that I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna go and outgear that living crap out of this guy, right? So after I'd done a full gaming session and everything had gone through there, I was like, now I'm going to go do dailies. I'm gonna go do dungeons. I'm gonna go get all the gear and make sure I'm ready for the raid as soon as possible. And I like collapsed in my bed and like. In the evening of that day, that was probably like a 22-hour gaming session or something. It was pretty ridiculous.
Nothing motivates a person like gamer rage. How not healthy are we talking? Did you supplement with gamer juice? Did you chug the energy drinks?
Oh, I had a brilliant. I like at the end I had a system, right? I had my all my Cokes that were lined up and make sure that I could drink my Coca-Cola. I bought frozen pizzas because frozen pizzas you just throw them in the oven into the super grid. Another thing that I started doing, which is amazing, is spring rolls, the Loon spring rolls. Just take like a bag of 8 of those buddies, put them in the oven for like 25 minutes, and then take them out and just eat them by hand. Yep.
Okay, anybody who wants to get in shape, do the opposite of what he just said.
yeah,
just
exactly.
Not that.
That's also why I'm saying very bad idea to actually do this. This is not good for your health.
And to round this madness up, what is your fondest gaming memory?
Oh, that's hard. I think it's probably a tie. I think it's probably a 3-way tie. Mm-hmm. Which sounds kind of crazy, but I think killing the Lich King in WoW, that has a really, really high standing. That was the first time I led my own guild. It was the first time that my own little group there. That was amazing. That was a really, really great feeling. And killing bosses still feels great, but it doesn't compare to like killing my first kind of end boss as a leader there. Mm-hmm. The second one is beating through in the Fire and Flames. Either beating it or the 5-star run. Like those two things were really, 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 really close. And the last one, and I kind of want to throw a little bit more gamer cred here. But in Legion. So Legion is a very special place in my heart, obviously, because I worked intensely on Legion while it was live, right? Yeah. But during Legion was a period of time where I lived alone. My wife lived back in Denmark at that point in time. Well, girlfriend back then. So I had all the time of the world. So what I did was basically, I worked, and then I went home, and then I played World of Warcraft, and then I went to bed. And then I got up, and then I worked out, and then I went to work, and then the entire cycle repeated, right? So there was this thing in Legion called the Mage Tower, where they were really, really difficult individual challenges, one for every single spec in the game. Well, there was like six challenges, 6 or 7 challenges for all the different specs in the game, and there's 36 specs in the game. Oh. So this required you to level all of the classes and be proficient in all of the different specs in order to go through them. And this was around the time where you could actually do Facebook streaming directly from in-game as well. Mm-hmm. And I streamed all of my attempts on the Mage Tower for every class, every spec, and ended up completing it. Every single class, every single spec, I have all the Mage Tower appearances. And I have like the documentation, right? I have all the videos.
You have receipts?
Of me, of I have receipts, right? I have all those. And it's really fun because I have Facebook memories turned on. And it'll pop up, right? It'll go like, hey, 6 years ago today, you were grinding Fury Warrior, trying to beat the Mage Tower, right? So it earns a really high spot because of Legion is just very dear to me,
Yep.
and it was really difficult, and it was a lot of fun to do that with all the different specs. But I just get to rewatch it every year now, which is awesome, right?
So
Which is it's super great, and I could just look at it and be like, oh yeah, that was so fun. That was that was great. Yeah, it's super fun. I don't have that much time to play. As I said before, like at that point in time, I lived alone and all that stuff. And now I have 2 kids, 2 kids and a wife. So I still play video games, obviously. It's what we do when we work in the industry, but I don't have anywhere near the amount of time that I used to have. So
yeah, but that's what makes this memory special.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I can always return to, but like, oh man, remember when I just completely no-lifed it? Just worked and gamed, and that was it.
I would say cred firmly established. And that's actually the episode. That's all I had.
Awesome. It was great fun talking to you, man. It was a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that bug episode. I'm gonna dig down deep and get all the different things.
Well, I'm holding you to that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely. I definitely need to talk about the time that I accidentally cost like millions of gold in WoW players for glyphs.
You're such a pro at this. The people are already salivating. I can feel it. So
yeah, I'm really sorry about that one, everybody. I'll make sure that doesn't happen here.
Apology accepted. So I would like to thank you for participating in this frankly phenomenal episode. So much, and especially taking the time this late in the evening to do so, especially knowing that you have a family. I would like to thank everybody for listening and joining us on this awesome journey. And we're gonna catch you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Hey you made it to the end. Congratulations! That must mean you like us enough to want more, right? Well, good news! We're all over the internet. Go to embersword.com and subscribe to our newsletter for a chance to play the game early, as well as the latest interesting tidbits on the game and the team. Join our lovely Discord community over at discord.gg/embersword. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PlayEmberSword for regular updates on what we're up to. And remember the basics. Drink water, be kind to each other, and spread the word about Ember Sword.